I just totally re-engineered myself. Rise and grind leads to success. It can, right? But I think there's an easier, better way for us to do it, because working 14 or 16 hours or 20 hours a day is not sustainable, right? Like, you can't do that in the long run.
Yes.
And if your
And
North
that's
Star, is going to take some time to get to, you're going to burn out before you get there.
Welcome. I'm your host, Martijn Smeets, mental health trainer for entrepreneurs, and in this podcast, Redefine Success, Unscripted Stories, we'll dive into raw, unfiltered stories of people breaking the mold to inspire you to let go of the societal pressure and norm of success. And if you love what you hear, then drop a review and make sure to check out the Thrive Tribe, a community where personal and professional well-being comes together. Let's dive into it.
Today, we are going to have a conversation with a 6-time founder, Kevin, an amazing guy. We connected over the Inner Circle and on LinkedIn. We had a 10 or 15-minute conversation, and the sparks were definitely there about it. He started his business with a little hot dog stand. Like, I'm sorry, but when I think about America, like here in Europe, you don't see that anywhere, these hot dog stands. So, to then actually have someone here who started off his business journey with a hot dog stand, now being a 6-time founder, helping other businesses grow their businesses, that is definitely a story I want to hear more about. Of course, we're going to dive more into the entrepreneurship, all of this, all of that. But tell me, give me the juicy bits right from the start. How do you come to, from a hot dog stand to where you are today, like in a nutshell?
Yeah. I mean, I just had that entrepreneurial blood in my system, and I always wanted to do my own thing. So, back then it was about solving problems. So the hot dog stand or cart was about paying my rent. So I saw an old hot dog cart, and immediately I said, wow, there's an opportunity there that could be cleaned up and make a little bit of money. And so that's what I did. And outside of, it was in college. So just picture a college town and a lot of hungry people getting out of the bars and clubs at night. And why not give them a hot dog, something to carry back as they walk back to their dorm room or apartment or whatever. So that's how it started. And now how it ended here is, 5 businesses after that, but always that entrepreneurial blood, always that let's solve a problem, build a business, grow a brand, and, let's provide value to people. Like I grew up in kind of an entrepreneurial type environment. And so I always had some, understanding of the concepts that it takes to launch and grow and be successful with a business.
Yeah, that's already something, because I've had quite a few people on here who come from a very different background than an entrepreneurial background. And, to hear you now say, I already came from that. And like, I think when you say that about the hot dog stand, you see that straight away. You have the other people going out and, getting drunk, living their life. And then Kevin comes in there and sees an opportunity. Hey, these people need food. Yeah. And I think that mindset, like obtaining that mindset is what you say, like the key of an entrepreneur, of like seeing an opportunity and just diving right into it and just getting it done, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and using some creativity along the way, right? So, a lot of people have ideas, and how are you going to be unique amid, in the middle of all the other options that somebody has to solve a problem? Like that person coming out of the, the bar or the club could just take that 10 or 15-minute trek home and cook some, ramen noodles, in their dorm room, or they could get a hot dog right here now, and not be hungry by the time that they reach their dorm. So yeah, it's capitalizing on opportunities and being creative with the way you do it.
And well, I can only speak for myself, but if I had a couple of beers too many, then I know I will always go for the solution right in the moment instead of waiting for home, right?
Yeah.
But like,
yeah.
Okay, so that's where you started. Before we really start unpacking this story of how now you got to be like a 5-time founder, just quickly roll us through. What are the businesses that you've had and that you've potentially sold, or and what are you working on right now?
Yeah. So starting with the hot dog stand, and then actually went into got my MBA. So really wanted to get an understanding of business from a 360-degree view, which the MBA allows you to do that 360 view. And my focus was on finance. So I went immediately into telecommunications, and I had more of an entrepreneur role. So I was in a unit that was given complete autonomy. I had over time, I had P&L responsibility, product development, decision making, all that kind of stuff. So I was working off somebody else's funding, that being an entrepreneur within a bigger company. And it just wasn't really what I wanted to do because it wasn't my own thing. So I actually took a severance package from a corporate job to open a burrito business. So now with the hot dog business, I'm like, oh, stay on food side. Wasn't my lifelong dream to be in food. It was just, I found another opportunity. And back in here where I am and where I reside, through my family and all that, there was not there's two big chains now, Chipotle and Moe's in the US. And I don't know if they're everywhere, but they're everywhere here. But back in the day, nobody was making fresh ingredient burritos, right? So there was this kind of trend towards being healthy. And if you could locally source some stuff and put it into a burrito and mix it up a little bit for everybody and serve a burrito, I'm like, wow, that's a pretty cool thing. So built a brand, did everything myself, bought equipment, hired people, and then kind of turned it over and let it run on its own with some people working for me for a while. And while I was doing that, I started a market research business. So I was really, one of the big things that struck me about running businesses is to know your buyer, right? The prospective buyer at a very deep level, right? Because then you can position everything you do, build everything you do, develop everything you do to serve them, right? Like that's the correct way to do a business, identify an underserved market, build something that meets their needs, exceeds their needs. So I started doing some market research stuff. There was a new mall that opened here and I was doing mall intercept placements, doing some customer discovery work for some startups or new companies. So I was running those two businesses kind of simultaneously. And so ended up exiting both of those, walked away with a little bit of cash to fund a startup, and then got into more B2B SaaS companies, software as a service companies, which I think is more my sweet spot and what it kind of where I dreamed of going back when I was running food service businesses and a professional services company. So again, it was the same process over and over. And what I thought is when I tested my process in a hot dog stand or a burrito business, if I messed up by a little bit, the ramifications were not that great, right? Like if I was wrong on what hot sauces customers really like with their burritos, I could quickly change that and get it right, to serve them in a way, that they saw value in. So that was kind of my my warming up or my preseason or whatever you want to call it for the big businesses that I started. And those were two B2B SaaS companies. And we were keenly focused on providing interpretive tours for guests or visitors of museums and historic sites, national parks and such. So, because during this era, the phone became such a big thing that we had in our pocket. It was kind of like a pocket kiosk or the audio wands that they had at bigger museums, right? Now you can use your phone to do that. So I kind of utilized my telecommunications expertise and knowledge and experience and rolled that into a couple of B2B SaaS companies.
Yeah, that's super cool to hear because I like something that I heard you say there is like you came from the hot dog, you went into the burrito, but then you said straight away, hey, this was not directly my dream to be in a food business.
Yeah.
And then you started with that B2B SaaS company, like for the museums. I think that's, creating that experience for the guest, right? I think that's such a beautiful and creative way that we got to think about as well to deliver that. But nonetheless, that's where you started thinking, okay, this is more the direction that I was dreaming of.
Right.
And this is something that I see in many entrepreneurs, I'll be honest, often in myself as well. There's this dream of, I want to do this and I'm going to go there straight away. And I just want to instead of taking all the steps that I need, take that massive big step and then just expect me in a very short period of time to know everything that the other person, you, for example, you did build two businesses. You got so much experience out of it. And me, without building those two businesses, I want to have exactly the same knowledge, skill set, and all of that. And that is something so underrated to go through these different stages, these different learning opportunities, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I guess I would have to credit my mom with, building that mindset in me, right? Like I looked at things more foundational, like a pyramid, right? Like there were some basic building blocks that I wanted to experience before I really, worked my way up to, the ultimate being a startup founder. And so there were these fundamental blocks like understanding cost, understanding cost and expenses, understanding sales and marketing, understanding product development, all those, and growing your brand. And so there were all these pieces that just kept, building up, building up, building up. And I didn't know exactly when I would pivot to, starting a B2B SaaS company, but I knew it was in the future plan. And so I was satisfied with where I was on that process to get to that ultimate plan, right? Because you can't acquire wisdom and insight overnight, right? It takes time, so you put time, money, and energy into things and you collect those foundational blocks that you use to build your pyramid. So that's kind of the approach that I took from a mindset standpoint.
Yeah, that's super cool to hear. And like how you explain that of you need those building blocks like a pyramid, an analogy that an ex-business coach of mine made for me, or like how he made me look at it. Okay, there's a North Star. And like for me, for example, my North Star is having community spaces, like not just I'm going to hang out around here and chill, but I'm going to learn, I'm going to evolve, I'm going to expand myself as a person. Having these all over the world and having that being one big connected community, and we can all just meet up somewhere. But that is, of course, a really, really big thing. You need a lot of money to be able to facilitate all of that, a lot of connections, a lot of time. But having that there, and then just like, even though I know those building blocks, like you said, I don't know all of them, how I'm going to get there. But focusing on, okay, today I have these opportunities. What can I learn from these opportunities that takes me a step closer to that? And, like whatever opportunity falls on your lap, because let's be honest, if we are open to it, there are opportunities every single day.
Yeah. But you notice
very
them,
often,
right? Some people never even notice them. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. So whatever you call that thing out there, your North Star source, some people are religious and think that, there's just, I'm destined to do certain things. So that comes to mind when you're saying that. And the other thing that's really cool about you, Martin, is that you defined your desired outcome, right? Like there's a lot of founders and entrepreneurs that I talk to and coach and consult with, and they just don't know what they want, right? Like they haven't gotten clarity in their mindset to say, hey, I want to be this provider of community, community engagement, or, I want to be a B2B SaaS company founder, or I want to, I want to have 1 million customers, or whatever it is. They just can't define it. And it's really hard to be fast and focused going towards something, or even, collecting those blocks along the way as part of your pyramid. It's hard to collect the right blocks if you don't know what the top of the pyramid is, or if you don't know where you're going. So to me, it always starts with what do I, and now it's not just about business, right? But I define things, all of life, 360 degrees. So, part of my goals are business oriented, part are family oriented, part are personal oriented. And when you're a work from home or a digital nomad, or, everything's like kind of integrated now. Like we used to seek, what is my balance between, personal and professional, or, I guess this way, personal and professional, right? And now it's more about how am I going to integrate these things over time to reach my desired outcomes? Like, who do I want to be? What are the big things that, and a lot of it can revolve around discovering your why, right? Your purpose, your burning desire, and that kind of thing. And there's a great Mark Twain quote, maybe you know it, but I'm not going to do it verbatim, but I think it's something like, it's mostly like, the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you figure out why. I think that's the quote. I think I nailed it.
I haven't heard that quote before, but that's so powerful. And, so much truth to everything that you say, because that work-life balance it's thrown around everywhere. Like there's a lot more talk around what that actually means these days, what is already very powerful. Because when we say work-life balance, it is that it has to be balanced between two different things, but it's about seeing that as part of one, because definitely as a business owner, I feel like your business is an extension of yourself.
Yes.
And that North Star has to be aligned with your purpose, your values, all of these
Yes.
things. But I might put you on the spot here a little bit. How, because you say you talk to so many founders, entrepreneurs that don't know where they're going. And obviously I have ways how I help my clients discover that. But what is you as a 6-time founder? What advice would you give someone, how they would be able to find the top of their pyramid, the North Star, whatever that top thing that they need to start aiming for?
Yeah, I mean, you can't force it, right? So, I mean, we talk a lot about through facilitation and conversation, sometimes pieces of it come out. But I think to me, at the end of the day, it's doing like meditation, right? Like quieting your mind, to know thyself, right? What do you really want from the inside out? And I think a lot of the times I just give them a different approach that kind of breaks down those challenges of the way they've been thinking it, right? And so, the approach is, let's define ourselves inside out, right? Like, let's not let external factors just guide who we want to be, right? The second part of that Mark Twain quote, right? Like discover that from the inside out. And, there are obviously books and YouTube videos and other sources that can help you along in doing that. People that have been doing it a lot longer than I have, and I draw what I say from the work of some pretty great people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Abraham Nix.
Yes.
There's a workbook series called Project 369. I mean, there's a bunch of tools out there. So the most important part is being open-minded to give those tools a chance, right? And to be honest with you, I didn't have this approach my whole life because I was an ice hockey player, right, in college and my whole life and stuff. And so the mantra and the mentality that you used for that was rise and grind, right? So when I started my first few businesses, it was like, if I have to work 10 hours a day, I'll do it. If I have to work 12 hours a day, I'll do it. If I have to work 16 hours a day, I'll do it, but I'll probably draw the line there, right? But it was all about rising and grinding and applying time and effort to things. And then I became more open-minded to some of these tools about how you can rewire your brain to do things in different ways and all that. And it really my mantra became rise, create, right? So like, let's rise and create some opportunity. Let's rise and create a new customer lead list. Let's rise and create, a new product extension, whatever it is, whatever your day involves. Let's create some fun stuff, right? And let's do it. When we do it, let's be in alignment with whatever it is we want from our burning desire, North Star source, whatever that is. Abraham Hicks talks about the vortex and being in alignment, right, with the things that you really want, that you've defined from the inside out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think there's a few very, very big points that I want to unpack a little bit more with you that you made there. Because you said you were talking about the tools right there that you learned from the 369 workbook, from Joe Dispenza, like Grant Cardone is someone I love following as well. I can't remember who the quote is from and who said it exactly, but it was somewhere along the lines of an entrepreneur doesn't necessarily know more or is better at things than someone who's not an entrepreneur. A good entrepreneur is just very good at connecting the dots between all the new knowledge, because all the new knowledge is out there. Every tool, to be honest, every course that every coach, business coach, strategist is giving, you can find for free on YouTube. But it's about going out there, putting the time into it, to finding it, and then connecting those dots. So listening to podcasts from this and a book from that, and then connecting those dots, that is what I believe makes you put you in a place for constant growth, right?
Absolutely, man. I love that. Yeah. Connecting the dots. There's a sales methodology called spin, and that's all about getting buyers to connect dots, right? Like you give them the information they need. You're not forcing a sale on them, right? You give them the information they need. Then they go, wow, it's an acronym, SPIN. It's situation, problem, impact, and needs analysis. And so that's what that's all about. And it's been a really successful, widely used, re-engineered over time, but spin is all about that. And so I take that kind of personal approach too, right? Like, what is my situation? What are the problems that I have or challenges that I have in getting to my North Star? And then what is the impact of those problems on me personally and professionally now? And then what is a way that I can, connect those dots and close those gaps so that I can get there, right? So I love that. Connecting dots is a really good approach and mindset to have.
Exactly. Connecting dots. And then the more dots you have, the easier it becomes to actually connect those dots. So that's why, like, I believe the desire and the need almost to constantly learn more is a very, very powerful and almost necessary skill for us entrepreneurs. But like, you shared some other interesting things there, that you were a hockey player and that your mantra used to be rise and grind. Because that brings us, with this, I'd love to tie it a little bit back to the topic of this podcast, redefine success. Of like, what does that actually mean? Because the rise and grind is a kind of a mindset, a way of living that I hear in so many entrepreneurs of like working 10, 12, 16 hours days. To be honest, I have a client at the moment and she pushed her schedule so full. She's working almost 20 hours a day. And like, it's so hard to break through that and like to let go of that. Like, we're slowly getting somewhere, but that mindset of rise and grind, is that something that was given to you through your entrepreneurial upbringing as well?
Yeah. I mean, it was the prevailing mantra of my generation, so it was big then, right? Rise and grind. And then it just got completely reinforced being an ice hockey player. My mom kind of had that mentality, so yeah, I thought that was the only way, and back in my days when I first started getting going, we didn't have all that content that you're saying that's out there on YouTube and all the other sources. Like, that wasn't all readily available, right? So you mostly just listened or watched other people that you defined as successful. And so you said, hey, if they're doing it, if he or she is doing it that way, I'm going to do it that way. I'm going to mimic them. And then, it took me a long time to, it took me into my 50s to realize there's another way here, and the world was changing around at the same time too, right? And if you're noticing what's going on in the world, it's become a creator's world, right? Like, all the tools that are out there to create things. So, just as a specific example, I got on the Upwork platform in 2019, and I thought I was going to be able to rise and grind my way towards being successful on that platform as a freelancer. And that was not what it's about. It's about a platform of creators and freelancers, and how can you position yourself to show that you can uniquely, close a gap for somebody that, doesn't have whatever expertise they're looking for on their team. So I had to, after 3 or 4 months, I quickly pivoted. And in parallel to that, I was opening up to a lot of the things like Joe Dispenza, Abraham Hicks, those things. So I was getting more and more into that because I wasn't working. Now I'm not working 10, 12, 14 hours a day. Now I've got some actual time to, first of all, my mindset became open to it, but now I've got some actual time to apply to these things and some energy to apply to these things. So I just totally re-engineered myself. And, it's not that rise and grind. You can't be successful doing rise and grind, right? Rise and grind leads to success. It can, right? But I think there's an easier, better way for us to do it, because working 14 or 16 hours or 20 hours a day is not sustainable, right? Like, you can't do that in the long run.
Yes.
And if you're North
that's
Star, it's going to take some time to get to, you're going to burn out before you get there.
Oh, but that raises the question to me. Can you, because the term of redefining success, yes, a business success, understand, am I a successful entrepreneur? Has a lot to do with how successful your business is, right? But like, I feel like that word success has been generalized over every other category in the world.
Yes.
And so that's why, because you said it there yourself, you look at the people that you deem as successful and you do what they do. But who do you deem as successful? Very often the people who drive the nice car, or, when it's at sports, the person who is in the NBA or the top league in that certain category. And you're going to do what they do. But very often we don't see what is happening in the background. We don't really know what they're doing, how they're actually feeling, right?
Right.
And so that brings me to the question, because you said it took you up until your 50s to get out of that rise and grind and how you called it before, with a love, into that rise and create mindset. What was like a pivotal moment, really something if there is one, there's probably multiple. If there's one like aha moment where you said that rise and grind, now it's time to let that go. It's time to step into that rise and create mode.
Yeah, it was all about defining myself and defining success from the inside out, right? Like I just, I became more open-minded to some of these things, like I guess, call them woo-woo things or whatever. Some people, say like, oh, that stuff will never work for me. And that's what I used to say, but it was my open-mindedness that actually allowed me to first discover these things, right? And then absorb these things and then embrace these things. And so it just, I have a, math and some engineering part of my brain too. So it had to be logical, right? And so I was able to take the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, which is very science-based, right? How the brain works, along with some stuff, that was less about that, more like the art behind it. So I was able to marry the science and the art to really find something that would work for me. And I was really, really motivated and curious of this whole idea of defining stuff from the inside out, right? Like you said, if I'm looking at somebody else and saying, hey, they're successful, I want to be like that. That's external to my heart and soul, right? Like I'm looking at them. But when fundamentally, I think we're here on this earth to do two things, right? Seeking two things, satisfaction and joy. So what I decided is that I'm going to spend my time on projects and on building a business, on things that I do that give me satisfaction and joy, or satisfaction and joy. And
I can get behind that.
Yeah. And so that's what changed for me, is that everything became inside, inner driven. So now, although I had been in pursuit of success for a lot of years, now I just changed my methodology on how I'm going to get there. What I did is I connected the dots, right, on a better way to get there. That's not going to drive, that could sustain, first of all, because there's a big issue with burnout, right? Like a lot of startup founders fail because they burn themselves out, and they're burnt out, and they may have had businesses that could, change the world, but they never get there because, they burn themselves out and they're not mentally prepared. And that's why, when you're when you're a startup founder and you go deliver a pitch deck, right? And you're talking to a group of investors, they're looking at your idea and they're also looking at you. How is this person driven? Can they really advance this business to really solve the problem that they say they're going to? Are they the right person to do it? And so the right person to do it is one that is very strong from a skill set standpoint, but also a mindset standpoint. And that's another takeaway from, the founders that I coach, is that they would spend all their time on skill sets, advancing those. They're coders and developers and techies, right? Advance, get more certifications, get more, computer languages, extend all that stuff. And meanwhile, their mindset's being left way behind.
And that is exactly, where I'd love to, because you work with these founders, these big founders, you want to do these yourselves. And you say it here, the mindset stays behind. It's all about strategy, structures, more knowledge, more and more of that.
Yeah.
And that is what very often the world, not just them, the world in general believes leads to success. Oh, that's why this podcast redefines success, because what is success truly? For me, in my opinion, success is not success when we look at one specific journey, like I want to drink a liter of water today. If I do that, then I'm successful in that, right? But like having a successful life or being successful in general, for me, I've learned for myself, is much more an internal feeling, right? So, because you said it yourself, it comes from the inside out. And before it's ever going to be possible for you to achieve that, we have to define, what does that mean to me? Does that mean having a certain amount in my bank account? And for me, I think it all comes down to lifestyle. Because then what you said before of, we look at people that we deem successful, and it is an external thing, but for the people listening that don't know what successful means to them, I think this can be a very good starting point to start reflecting. Because you can look at that other person, but then actually take the time to ask yourself, what about this person do I find successful? Is it his money? Is it the car? Is it the way he treats his family? Is it how he talks in the media? Is it how he spends his free time, whatever it may be. But really get clear on what about him do I find successful? Because this could be like the stepping stones for you to get clear on what it means to be successful in your own opinion.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that is on point for sure. 100%. And the thing that jumps to me too is that, time is so important, right? Like I've lost money and gotten it back, but I can't get time back, right? And Father Time, is undefeated, right? Like nobody wins forever. So I think the best you can do is to identify those desired outcomes and, get to that North Star kind of mentality that you have, right? And, the one thing that strikes me too that you talked about is the way you feel, right? Like in the business world, they
Yes.
look at KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. Well, I call another KPI is a key personal indicator, right? So when I talk to founders, it's like, how does this business make you feel? And they're like, what? What do you mean? Like, does it give you satisfaction and joy, right? Like we can look at a lot of data and a lot of people are data driven and you definitely need data to make the right decisions in companies and lead to success and all that. But there's also this element that's inside of you that is like intuition and gut feel and the way you feel and stuff like that. So, fundamentally, why would you do anything that doesn't make you feel good? So, it's kind of like, if you guide to that, right? And the other thing that I want to say is that this is not a case of like, just hope for it to happen and it'll come true. You still have to, apply time, money, and energy to things to make them happen. But this creative way of going inside out just, helps you to be able to manage multiple pieces of your life and have that integration and all that kind of thing. So yeah, the way you feel is really important, and not everything can be found in data or feedback. Yeah.
And I think it's so powerful to hear you say that this is a question that you ask members, because like we experience life through our senses and in turn through our emotions.
Mhm.
And like when we lay on a deathbed, we can't take our money. We can't like the only thing we're taking is how we experience that life. That is what we'll be thinking about at our last moments. And anything that we do in our life, whether it's starting a business, whether it's eating a hot dog or choosing to start a hot dog stand, whether it's you choosing to drink a glass of water instead of a glass of wine today, whether it's going to bed at 10 or at 2 in the morning,
Mhm.
we make every decision in that moment to feel better in whatever way, to feel more comfortable, to feel more happiness, to feel more fulfillment, to feel more
Mhm.
ecstasy, or to feel less sadness, to feel less, whatever it may be. And I think that is something, if that is our goal, that deeper internal goal for every single decision that we make, because every entrepreneur is a decision maker, right? We have to be good at making decisions. If every decision in a deeper sense drives us in the direction of an emotion that we want to feel more, how is it possible that we don't put that in our KPIs?
Right. It should be. Yeah. 100%. And, the other thing that's really important is as you make all those individual decisions, right, on the path to your North Star, be satisfied with where you are right here and right now, right? Because what happens is even after you take this approach, if you become focused on your North Star and you're more focused on the things you haven't done yet to get to your North Star, then that's going to create fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And, what you need to the part B of this is, be happy where you are on your journey and believe that you're going to get to where you want to go, right? There's a whole concept that you are the believer and the belief, right? So if you unpack that, it's you have to be, supremely confident that you can do it and you're creating it yourself, so you are the creator and the creation, right? So you are the believer and the belief. And I don't mean that in a religious way, but it can be spiritual. But I mean it in that whatever you, ask for it and it is given, right? Dream it and you can do it. And that's when people ask me to, hey, what is it that you do? I help founders realize their dreams. What do you mean? Well, I coach them in some some business, strategies and tactics and consult with them and all that. But that's fundamentally what I'm doing. I'm saying, tell me what it is, your North Star is. Tell me where it is that you want to go. Because, a lot of what I do is road mapping or GTM plans, go to market plans or playbooks, right? I can't possibly build one for you if you don't know where you're going, Like when we jump in our cars and we put the navigation in, it takes us where we want to go. So where is it that you want to go? What is your North Star for this business? Oh, okay. That's your North Star. Well, now I can apply, or create or implement a set of strategies and tactics to help you get there. But I can't do that before you define point B, right? Like we can always tell where we are now, right? Take a deep look at where we are now. And if you define where you want to go, now we can connect those two, right? And now we have a playbook, GTM plan, or
That makes me curious because we actually haven't shared that yet. What is for you your North Star at this point in time?
It's to inspire creation. So I did some work on, I think, the goal is to find something that you're passionate about as the founder or the entrepreneur, right? And connect that with something that a buyer sees value in, right? So if you take your passions and strengths and skills and all that, and then you kind of connect that into your heart, and so I was so moved by this whole new approach of rise and create that's really what and the reason that it was always bubbling up was because that was always what I was doing with people. I'm like, wow, you want to do this? Let's create a way to do it. Let's create a strategy. Let's stack a few tactics together to create a strategy, to get you where you want to go. So it's to inspire creation. And I think, my energy, usually people can react to and say, wow, positive energy and all that kind of stuff. So instead of trying to motivate people, like do this and you'll get to $1 million, the impact of $1 million will give you these things. It's more like inspire is inside, right? So inspire creation, be creative in the way that you go about your life and, your professional life and your personal life to get to your North Star.
Inspire creation. Because there's so many, like, I can't remember how, what the numbers were behind it, but there's so many beautiful ideas that never come into creation very often before they ever get started because people are scared of getting started. Then, you talked about burnout, so many things, and it's such a shame. So I love to hear that from you, like inspire creation. But to also dive a little bit deeper into that mental health aspect, because before the conversation, you also made clear to me, how you love that part of it now. You said in the past you were a naysayer against those parts that many of the older generation are, and many of this generation still are today.
Yep.
We all know that with entrepreneurship is not always easy. It comes with some challenges, with some very high highs and some very deep lows. And focusing on your personal development, your mental health, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced in the 30, 40 years that you've been in business?
Yeah. The one thing I want to mention is I may be making it sound simple, but it's not easy, right? There's a difference between those two, right? Like, I think there's a simple set of a simple set of
100%
steps that you can apply, but it's not easy to implement those steps and get to the next one and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, all of this stuff. I mean, I've had some, my mom died early, so I have some personal tragedies in my life that obviously created some challenges. It's never, when I talk about the connecting point A to point B, it's never a straight line, right? It's always going to be zigzag, back, forth, up, down, and whatever to get it right. And so for me, I was able to use, because I had that rise and grind mentality, right? I was able to apply more of that when I needed it, right? Like I need to power through and accept that this has happened. And now what can I create to get around it, to get over it, to get through it? So, specifically, I mean, I've had some failed businesses. I've had, there's been ideas that I created that I had co-founders that didn't work out. I mean, there's kind of been all of those things, personal tragedies, business failures, all of it. But, all that stuff becomes kind of scar tissue, right? It becomes for you to take that experience, right? And draw from it, right? Like my mom dying so young became a way for me to inspire me to, because I believe some, people are up there looking down, maybe, their energy is still somewhere. So they're at least still feeling me. So, I still want to be inspired by my mom, even though she's not on the, on earth. But, yeah, I mean, just a whole mix of different things have happened along the way. Because as you said, 30 years, that's a long time. So that's a long time for stuff to happen, right?
I think like a big important aspect what you said there, and maybe we can dive a little deeper into that. You had a few failed businesses.
Yeah.
Because I hear so many people say that. And like for myself, I had to make a few like really big pivots in my business as well. Like I'm still in that first business, or no, second actually. But like still I had to make some really big pivots. I know so many people go through that. And like what I hear, entrepreneurship is just about not giving up, keep on learning, keep on actually like trying to improve yourself. Don't keep like, what is it again? The definition of stupidity, I'm not sure if stupidity is the right word, but definition of stupidity is doing the same thing all over again and expecting different results.
Yeah.
So we have to learn something about it. And like one thing that I think every entrepreneur and like maybe even every person in the world has to learn is how to deal with failure.
Yeah.
And like failure in the smaller sense of, okay, this didn't work. Whether it's, I bought this hot sauce for my burrito station and like it really didn't sell, and you find a solution for that, to a bigger challenge of like an actual complete business that failed. How did you deal with that in the moment there? And like, what is some advice or some tips you can give around that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it comes back to mindset, right? So like you should accept as a founder or an entrepreneur that you're in experimentation mode when you first get started, right? So maybe it's not a failure. Maybe it's an experiment that didn't work out, right? Like, so you have to accept that, you're making, unless you have perfect information, right? Like the best way to start a business, like I mentioned earlier, is go talk to people that you think will be your buyers and then ask them all the questions you need to ask them. I could have asked them, what is your favorite hot sauce? What do you like about hot sauces? What ingredients would you put in a hot sauce, in your ideal hot sauce? I could have done all that work before, right? But I was so eager to get started, I would just launch stuff. And a lot of businesses now build something and then they put it out in the market, and it's kind of like market-driven feedback. It takes a long time to do it that way, unless you've got one of these unicorn ideas that everybody's just going to, immediately embrace, right? Sure. So I think from a mindset standpoint, to get over these failures is to accept at the beginning that you were experimenting. And some of those assumptions that you make are going to validate, right? And some of those are not. And so one of the big things you can do is to document all that stuff, right? I always use a business model canvas, right? And a business model canvas has 9 boxes on it, to keep you centered and focused on your business. And you make some assumptions in there, right? And then as you go into the market and try to sell, and you continue to talk to people and all of that, you always return to that BMC to validate your assumptions. If they validate, you go all in on them. If they don't validate, you pivot away from them. So it's kind of a structured approach to realizing that you're going to experiment along the way.
And I love how you put that, because there's so many people that have an idea, and like everybody thinks their idea is their unicorn idea, how you put it, right? Like we all think, oh, I have this idea and this is going to be amazing. People are going to love it. You talk to your friends, well, most of the time your friends are going to encourage you, right? So there might not always be the best feedback.
Yeah.
And that's why I loved how you put that of get an overview of everything that all the statements that you're making, and like see which ones are validated and which ones not, because then the whole thing might not feel like a failure. You just realize, okay, these things were too much, but you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. And I think that's an important thing here as well. Or, really refine that basket that you're 100% sure that that's the right one. But like you said, that takes time. And you also mentioned you have to learn to accept that some things are not going to work out. Some things are going to fail. Not going to work out the way that you want to. Acceptance, it's very easy to say that, but very difficult for many, many people to sometimes accept or, be able to let go of something. Are there some tips that you could give someone that feels like, okay, this is not working, maybe I need to change, but that struggle to accept that?
Well, I mean, it's the whole win or learn mentality, right? There is no losing in business, right? If you applied your mindset the right way. So, businesses are all about, like we've been talking about, experimentation, and they're about milestones, right? So you're creating milestones along the way. You've got to understand, if you stay connected to your North Star, you stay connected to the desired outcomes of this business, the best thing they say, fail fast and pivot, right? So if you're going to fail, AKA learn, like, do it quickly. So, yeah, I think in terms of specific tips, it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about the whole time is, it's your mindset that's going to get you through it. It's not necessarily some skill that you have, not hiring somebody else. I don't want to put myself out of work, but consultants will tell you how to do things, but really you need to know how to do those things. Right. So what I do is when I consult with people, I take the approach that it's like teach people to fish, not give them fish. So it's kind of like you should do these things because I think they will work. But again, this is an experimentation, but based on my experience, insight, mindset, skill set, I would do this. And so let's try it and then let's see what happens. So the feedback loop is really important, right? Like what's terrible is if you're failing, you don't know you're failing. Right? Because now you're burning time, money, and energy on this failure path. And if your North Star is up here, you're not going in that direction right now, right? Maybe because you're failing, maybe. Or maybe it's the wiggle, right? Or the wobble to get you there. But the idea is you need to know as soon as you can know, right? So that's an important thing from a skill set standpoint, or tactic standpoint, is put feedback in place. That's why people talk about KPIs, right? Like, hey, I thought we were on the right path to get to my desired outcomes. Our KPIs are telling us that we're not. All right, let's change it now. So as soon as you should change it, you should change it.
And I think that's just to add it, it's not even an analogy, it's a real world comparison to this. When they shoot a spaceship into space, 1 millimeter off on Earth leaving would be so far off to where they have to be when they actually arrive.
Right.
And I read this article about it a couple of weeks back. Can't remember who the article wrote exactly, but apparently they're only a space shuttle is only on course for 2% of their whole route to where they're going. So they're consistently all the freaking time making these micro adjustments, pivoting. And that's what I hear you saying as well. And I think that is when it comes to that acceptance, learn to be honest with yourself and listen to that mindset of let's just take the facts for what they are instead of trying to bend them to make them what I want them to be.
Right. Right. Yes, 100%. Because a lot of founders are launching businesses off a sample size of one. And right. And I have this conversation with them, well, who have you talked to that would be a buyer? Well, I talked to my Aunt Sally, and my mom. Well, they don't count because they're going to go, attaboy, attagirl, and they're just going to, they don't know, they don't know what the right answer is when you ask them. Do I tell them, oh my God, this sucks and make them feel bad? Or do I, encourage them mildly and say, get going on this, So, if you're not going to talk to buyers before you build something, then you're going to have to accept that you're experimenting and some of this stuff is going to be wrong. Right. And then, when it comes to that, it's a mindset thing again, but this quote, I don't know whose it is. I don't think it's Mark Twain, but it's let the big things be the big things. Right. So don't get as upset and, challenged by small things. Small things are going to pop up that aren't completely right all the time, but the big things are the big things, right? And let them be the big things, right? So there are some big, and then, it comes down to where you are in your startup journey and all that kind of stuff. So there's going to be some bigger milestones, right? And that's the other, I guess, tip is that I always set milestones. So again, we're talking about the North Star, and that's a pretty long journey, like you're saying, right? That's up there. And so you need to recalibrate all the time. And then you need to set milestones along the way that says, yep, okay, got to this. This makes me feel good. I have satisfaction. I have joy. Let me keep going to the next milestone. And, oh, by the way, if you're turning this into, a business and you're going to go get investors and stuff like that, that is a great story to tell. The milestones that you've hit along the way. And so, then, a pitch deck is about minimizing risk from the first slide to slide 13 or whatever you ask for money, right? If you can minimize risk by telling them a story about all the milestones that you hit in this business, then that minimizes risk for them. They're like, wow, this person has this planned out. They're on pace, they're on pace to that North Star. This is awesome. Sounds like something they may want to invest in. So setting milestones becomes really key as well.
Yeah. And talking about those milestones, we talked about this before, but I think something to reintroduce into the conversation here as having, these milestones, these KPIs, these points of where you realize, hey, I might need to pivot, is our heart sets. How are we feeling in this whole journey? Are you constantly feeling stressed? Are you feeling pushed or, pressured by external factors to go into this direction? Do you actually find any joy in what you're doing whatsoever? Are you connected to your purpose into all of these things? I think these are some very important and underrated questions that we have to ask ourselves in this journey as well. It's not just about, am I making sales? Is this working? What is my profit? What is my revenue? How many people are reaching out to me? Where are the people coming from? It's so much more than that, because like we talked about before, we are still running or building whatever business we are building to feel a certain something, to create a certain lifestyle that is going to give us a certain emotion. And if whatever you are building, whether it's a SaaS, whether it's a food company, whether it's a coaching business, if you notice that this is pushing you further away from the emotion that you're trying to achieve, then that is a very clear point of, okay, I need to pivot in one way or another here to go back to that emotion that I'm looking for.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, you said it perfectly. So, right, if when I get to that mindset that I know what my North Star is, right? What do they call it? I was in a zone today, I had my A game, that kind of thing. When you're in vibrational alignment, which is, what I call it, energy, when your energy is connected to your North Star, you're in vibrational alignment, right? And you're going to pop off from time to time, right? It's going to happen. Nobody stays in it 100%. But to your point, what are those indicators that tell you that you're not in alignment? Because you don't always notice it right away, right? Oh, I snapped at my wife. I was mean to my dog, whatever. There's going to be some stuff that are going to be indicators to you and go, wait a minute, I don't have my energy aligned right now. What is it? What can I do to can I take some deep breaths? Can I go meditate? Can I go do yoga? Can I go for a walk? Something, connect with nature. So is there something I can do, get back in alignment, right? Because that's where I'm really good, right? That's where I'm fast and focused. That's where I've got my A game. That's where I'm in the zone. I'm in the flow, right there.
Yes. Love it. So let's slowly bring this to a close, because we're coming up to the hour.
Okay.
So I always love to ask people for some very specific advice when it comes to someone that is in the situation where you used to be. So that rise and grind mentality is still, a big mentality within the entrepreneurial world. Imagine that you are talking to this person who is really still in the mindset of, I am going to be working 14 hours a day to get where I want to be. It's all about that goal. I'm just going until I'm there. Obviously, you notice, he or she probably notices feeling burnout, feeling unfulfilled, constantly exhausted. What is some advice you would give to that person today?
I mean, to be open to other ways to get there, right? I think what I would do is tell them there's not only one way. That way could be successful for you, but would you be open to exploring some other ways to get there that don't involve working 20 hours a day? Because now studies show, right? Part of the reason I pivoted away from that was that there's data out there that says that people are getting burned out and you'll never realize your dream. You're getting burned out and you just created some health issues that you can't overcome the rest of your life. You're going to have to manage those or whatever. There's a lot of people out there talking about this. And so I think it becomes, about their open-mindedness and just convincing them that there's more than one way to get to where you want to go, and then it comes back to, let's not let this just happen randomly. Let's put a roadmap together to get you to where you want to go. Like I've helped founders create personal roadmaps, right? Like, I want to start a family in 5 years. So I need to scale back on this job. I need it to be, self-sustaining until then. I need to find co-founders that are in the same situation that can run it, whatever it is. Let's put a plan together on what you want. Like we've been saying all along, you're only on this like one time, as far as we know, you're in this world one time. So let's, and you can't get time back, right? So let's make the best use of our time. And if you're struggling with something, right, like that's the stupidity thing, right? Like if this is not working for you, if you're not reaching your desired outcomes, if you're not getting your milestones, if your KPIs or even key performance indicators are telling you something's off, then it's time to change. It's not time to change more time and effort the same way you've been doing it, because you're expecting a different result by doing the same thing, right? So I think it would revolve around that, and I tell the story about how I became open-minded and it changed everything for me. And, I believe I was successful using Rise and Grind. I just don't believe that mantra is viable anymore. So I just think there's a better way to do it.
Mm-hmm. And so everyone listening that feels like, being in a state that I just described, that overwork, that I don't know, how I can keep on doing this for much longer, be open to that change. And you said it before, Joe Dispenza is like such a powerful person of connecting that science part to that mystical part of the spiritual realm.
Yep.
I think we're all spiritual. I think like dividing the two is already stupidity, but nonetheless, he has so many like scientific experiments around meditation and how our brain works and all these things. Dive a little bit into neuroscience. Like it is literally explaining all of that you now describe as woo-woo. And, Kevin here, who is from a slightly older generation, used this as like, his key turning point to go from
Absolutely.
Rise and Grind to Rise and Create. And now having the time to spend time with his family to, have that successful life that he has in his mind. So if that is something you're looking for, get that open mind, because there's nothing better. And once you have that, there's no way back, right?
Yep. 100%, man. Great way to nail it at the end for sure. Love it.
All right, Kevin, of course, there's 2 more questions. If you could write a textbook definition of success, completely change it, whatever is there now, if you could write a new textbook definition of success, what would that be?
There was things that give you satisfaction and joy, defined from the inside out. That's success to me.
Define it from the inside out, the things that give you joy. I love that. Perfect. I really love this conversation. If other people want to connect with you or potentially work with you, I don't know, if you take a new client, feel free to take a little bit of time to, where can people find you? And if something is coming up for you, this is your time and space to share.
I mean, I'm on most of the socials, so you can find me on LinkedIn. A lot of the people I work with work for companies. So obviously on LinkedIn, Instagram as well, Dooley _biz coach on Instagram, and then KM Dooley, my first 2 initials on LinkedIn.
Perfect. The links will also be in the show notes. But Kevin, I really want to thank you for this beautiful conversation. It really charged me up and, got me excited about all of these topics again. And I can't wait to go live for everyone to hear about it. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you as well. I feel like this could have went many hours. Like we had a lot of good conversation here. We could keep going sometime. Maybe I'll come back on again if you have me. And if anybody reaches out, got specific questions, maybe we can handle those and keep going with this. But again, thank you so much, Martin. Really appreciate it. It was great to see you again, and look forward to collaborating with you down the line.
Yeah, Kevin, 100%. I was thinking it already as well, and episode 2 might definitely be on the table for us.
Look forward to it.
All right.
thank you for tuning in, and I hope this episode was valuable to you. And if it was, share it with someone else who might benefit from it as well. And if you want to support the podcast a little bit more, a like, a subscribe, or even a review could go a long way. And if you are looking for more weekly insights, practical tips filled with resources, and updates on future free workshops, then sign up for the Thrivewire, my bite-sized value-focused newsletter to help you thrive beyond the hustle. Sign up at www.thethrivetribe.space/newsletter or find the link in the description. Thanks again, and see you in the next episode.